The following item was found by a team of adventurers in the ruins of death. We asked the best appraisers to appraise this item. We found that this item has an excellent conductive effect on spiritual power and can store a certain amount of it. Amount of spiritual power. According to the appraisal of the appraiser, this item should be used as an excellent material for alchemical spiritual weapons to make spiritual weapons. As for any other special value, our appraisers have not explored it yet. Come out, but please think about it. Will the things found in the ruins of death, the most mysterious forbidden place in the mainland, be unknown? Now let us take a look at this mysterious item. We call it the soul storage stone. Looking at the expectant looks of those around him, Jason shook his head. This auctioneer was very good at creating atmosphere. In just a few words, he made an unknown stone look like a treasure. Just as the auctioneer finished speaking, a plate was brought to the front desk by the hostess. The auctioneer opened the plate, and the lights from the roof of the auction hall suddenly shone on the plate in front of the auctioneer. A black stone the size of a fist appeared in front of everyone. Under the light, it shone with a strange luster. Looking carefully, there seemed to be traces of black aerosol-like things swimming in the middle of the black stone. Moving, extremely beautiful. The starting price for the spirit accumulating stone is 1,000 spirit coins. Please raise your bid. After the auctioneer said this, he looked around the auction hall and then stood aside. Hey, a broken stone starts at 1,000 spirit coins. It's better to grab it. I think this thing is at most the same as the black stone used to make spiritual weapons. It only costs a few hundred spirit coins. What's wrong with the ruins of death? The ruins of death, a stone is still a stone. Xiaobo curled his lips. Although the auctioneer's words were ridiculous, there were only a few people who were deceived. This kind of thing is also put up for auction. I heard that there were good things in the auction tonight, so I came over to take a look. Let me tell you, even President Saha of our union seemed to be attracted by the good things. Alarmed, Xiaobo looked like he knew what was going on. He mysteriously turned his head to look at Jason beside him, only to find that Jason seemed to be stunned. This is the Philosopher's Stone? Seeing the stone on the stage, Jason was stunned for a moment. After carefully looking at the black stone on the auction stage, Jason's eyes, there was a hint of surprise in it. Before, he didn't think that the soul-storing stone that the auctioneer talked about would be a good thing. It was similar to what Xiaobo said. It was probably a material like black stone, but people had never seen it before. But when he saw the stone, Jason's thoughts had completely changed. The Philosopher's Stone. With Jason's eyesight, he immediately saw that the black stone seemed to be the Philosopher's Stone, which was called the best alchemy stone by the alchemy community of later generations. After all, there are too few traces of the Philosopher's Stone on the mainland. Even in later generations, Jason has only seen 3 in total, and the largest one is only half the size of the one on the auction table at the moment. After careful observation, Jason was convinced that the one on the stage was the Philosopher's Stone. Xiaobo, help me, how much money do you have on you? After recognizing that the black stone was the Philosopher's Stone, Jason had already made up his mind to get the Philosopher's Stone at all costs. Photographed the stone. What are you doing? Don't tell me you want to take a picture of this broken rock, right? Xiaobo was startled by Jason's sudden question. After seeing Jason's eyes, an ominous premonition appeared into Xiaobo's mind. Yes, I'm going to order this thing today. Tell me, how much money do you have on you in total? You have to think clearly. Xiaobo couldn't help but advise Jason, but when he saw Jason still looking at him with shining eyes, Xiaobo knew that he might not be able to stop Jason. This thought came to mind. Okay, I still have 15,000 spirit coins in my spirit card, thank you very much. Lend me the money first. I'll return it to you in 2 days as long as you spend. Jason glanced at Xiaobo gratefully. It's not just empty talk. His 3 bottles of spirit-reviving potion cost more than this, but Xiaobo, who didn't know the truth, didn't know this. I'm telling you, you have to think it over yourself and don't regret it later. Xiaobo couldn't help but persuade Jason again. He was not worried about his own money, although it was earned from his daily job. What he was afraid of was that Jason was acting impulsively now and would regret it later. 15,000 spiritual coins, although it is not much, should not be a problem, right? After all, it is impossible for anyone to know the value of the Philosopher's Stone now. Jason thought secretly in his heart, but he clearly remembered that the Philosopher's Stone, the discovery of value, should have been first discovered by Edward, a genius alchemist, 500 years ago. Ignoring Xiaobo, Jason's attention has shifted to the ongoing auction. 2,500 spirit coins. Someone in the audience reported a higher price. 3,000. Others did not give in at all. 4,000. I'll give you 5,000 spirit coins, came another loud voice. The bidding sounds around him dropped. Okay, Mr. Number 176 is offering 5,000 spiritual coins. Is there any more? This is a mysterious item from the ruins of death. Seeing the scene quiet down, the auctioneer started to stir up the excitement again. Sure enough, as soon as he finished speaking, another voice came from elsewhere. 5,005. 6,000. Jason looked at the rising price, and sweat broke out on his forehead. Xiaobo said that he only had 15,000 spirit coins, and there was nothing he could do if the price exceeded this price. But the rich people here are really stupid. A thing that doesn't even know what it is raised to such a high price, just because the auctioneer said it came from some death ruins. Aren't they afraid that the auctioneer will randomly use a stone to fool them? 7,000, 5,000. The price finally stopped at this position. 10,000. Jason reported his price. But now no one is trying to rob him. No one will spend 10,000 spirit coins on an unknown item, even if the item comes from the ruins of death. 10,000. Okay, Mr. Number 218 has offered 10,000. Is there anyone else who has offered higher than him? The auctioneer waited for a moment and found that no one had offered a higher price. Okay, the spirit storage, the stone of spirits, belongs to this gentleman. Now let us look at the next item, my money. Seeing Jason really take a picture of the stone of soul storage, Xiaobo couldn't bear it. Zhu let out a howl. The auction continued, and Jason was immersed in the joy of success in auctioning the Philosopher's Stone. The Kingdom of Orlando borders the Spiritual Domain Mountains, one of the 6 taboo places on the mainland. It is a country of spiritual beasts. The items to be auctioned next are all high-end spiritual cores. Many high-level spiritual cores with quite pure grades were purchased. A high price of nearly 100,000. Soon, the auction came to an end, and the next items to be auctioned were the finale items of this auction. Bang! The auctioneer suddenly hammered the table hard, and the entire auction hall fell silent at the sound. Obviously, everyone knew that the final items were about to appear one by one. Okay, now is the auction of the finale items of this auction. There are 4 final items in this auction. The auctioneer waved his hand, and the lights on the entire auction stage dimmed suddenly. A beam of light, it shined directly on the entrance of the hostess. In the expectant gaze of everyone, 3 very beautiful etiquette ladies walked out of the entrance holding 3 silver discs. Each of the etiquette ladies had the badge of the Spirit Masters Guild on their chests. Intermediate Spiritual Warrior. The 3 etiquette ladies came to the auctioneer with graceful steps and placed the silver trays in their hands on the stage in front of the auctioneer. The auctioneer did not pretend to be mysterious, but under the expectant eyes of everyone, he suddenly pulled open the silk covering the 3 silver trays, and placed 3 bottles of elixir quietly in the middle of the silver trays. It emits a charming purple halo under the light. 3rd level high-level spiritual elixir, reviving elixir. The auctioneer's voice suddenly rose, after being appraised by Master Saha, the appraiser of this auction house and the president of the Elixir Masters Union. This rejuvenating elixir is of extremely high quality and can cure most people. Spiritual power damage below the 4th level, and the spiritual power value contained in it can restore the spiritual power in a third-level senior spiritual master to its full value in a short time. The audience who originally heard that this time the elixir was a third-level high-level elixir were not surprised. Some people even felt that although this time the elixir was a third-level high-level elixir, it might not be worth it in the final auction. But after hearing the effect of this magical potion, the entire auction venue suddenly boiled, and everyone started talking about it. Damn, this is the real elixir. Sooner or later, I will prepare it. Xiaobo on the side couldn't help but screamed at Jason. After being shocked for a moment, everyone came back to their senses one after another. Their fiery eyes were all fixed on the soul-reviving potion on the stage. The finale item is indeed the finale item, it's well worth the trip. Hurry up and make a quote. Someone in the audience was already shouting impatiently. Auctioneer William smiled slightly, looked around the audience, and then said, according to the seller's request, these 3 bottles of spirit-restoring potions are not auctioned separately, but are bundled together. The starting price is 100,000 spirit coins. Now, the auction begins. As soon as the price was announced, the whole place became quite quiet. Obviously, at such a price, not many people had the purchasing power. The auctioneer set his sights on the private rooms around him. The patriarchs of the families in Talon City should be interested in such things, and those who are qualified to bid are probably only those big families. Jason in the audience couldn't help but wonder. He didn't seem to have such a request, but Jason also understood that this was the auction house's auction method to maximize profits. If bottles are sold, 3 families will get the spirit-restoring potion, and the competition will not be so fierce. If they are bundled together, only 1 family will get the spirit-restoring potion in the end. Competition among people who want to get the spirit-restoring potion will get hot. Looking at the slightly silent audience, the auctioneer William always stood aside with a smile on his face, and did not make any unnecessary publicity or exaggeration. He knew the value of the spirit-reviving potion very well. For some spiritual masters who have been fighting all year round, at a special moment, a bottle of spirit-restoring potion can almost guarantee a life. For such a thing, William believes that some people may want to put these 3 bottles of spirit-restoring potion into their pockets even if they lose all their money. Sure enough, the silence didn't last long. A middle-aged man wearing a third-level intermediate spiritual master's uniform and sitting not far from Jason reported the price, 110,000. That was a very famous adventure in Talon City. The captain of the hunter team also owns some shops in Talon City and runs some businesses, and his strength is considerable. 115,000, 120,000. After the middle-aged man made his quotation, the whole audience suddenly heard a steady stream of quotations. However, these quotations were basically heard in the area where the package was located, and the prices gradually approaching 150,000, the quotations in the field gradually subsided. Although these people really want the spirit-reviving potion, the price is too high. You know, the profit of a shop in the prosperous area of Talon City in a year is only about 30,000 to 40,000 spirit coins. 180,000. Just after the quotations outside the venue became quieter, an old voice suddenly came from a private room on the upper right side, and the quotation was suddenly increased by 30,000. Auctioneer William was shocked. As the ace auctioneer of Oliver Auction House, he knew that the old guys in Talon City had finally begun to take action. The real auction had just begun at this time. 200,000. After the old voice quoted the price, a woman's voice also came from the box on the other side. 220,000. The old voice did not pause and directly quoted the price again. His tone was full of strength, giving people a feeling that he was bound to win. 230,000. 240,000. Unfortunately, it backfired. In the boxes above, all of them chose to take action. The hearts of these people were all as bright as mirrors. Even if they didn't need such a powerful thing, they all chose to take action. It can also be placed in the family to recruit strong people. Through the introduction of the previous auctioneer, these people all understood that the 3 bottles of soul-restoring potions on the auction table were not suitable for 3rd-level spiritual masters, even 4th-level heavenly spiritual masters, and even 5th-level sect spirits. Teachers all have a certain ability to attract people. If you can recruit 2 4th-level heavenly spirit masters with this, then your family's strength will be greatly improved. You must know that even the strongest man in Talon City, Lord Jones, the guard commander of the City Lord's mansion, only has 5 the strength of a low-level sect spiritual master. So after understanding this, everyone estimated their own low price and kept raising the price. Soon, the price approached the 300,000 mark. Looking at the rising prices, Xiaobo screamed, as if he had prepared the elixir, while Jason sat there calmly as if nothing had happened. Although the price of this auction is high, as a 9th-level elixir master in his previous life, he has never seen anything like this. And for Jason now, apart from improving his strength and making him a little excited, there is nothing else. Nothing could shake his heart. 330,000. 350,000. At this time, the auction of the spirit rejuvenating potion has reached a feverish stage. There are only 3 guests in the private rooms bidding in the entire auction house, and when the price reaches 30 at 50,000 yuan, one of the companies withdrew from the bidding because it exceeded its bottom line. 350,000 spiritual coins is not a small amount of money. Such a large amount of additional expenditure on purchasing spiritual potions is enough to put some big families into financial crisis. 360,000. 370,000. 380,000. The price is still gradually rising, and the quotations between the 2 parties are becoming more and more severe. Everyone in the entire auction house you can feel the vague anger between the 2 parties, and the hesitation on whether to continue to increase the price. 400,000. A deep voice came from a private room with a hint of coldness. If you are very familiar with the Lord of Talon City, you can immediately tell that this voice belongs to the guard commander of the Lord of Talon City. The strongest person in Talon City, a sect spiritual master whose strength has reached the 5th level, Jones. 450,000. In another box, an old voice reported the sky-high price that shocked the whole audience. Lord Jones, we are the only ones bidding for this elixir at this moment. This is the price I can afford. If you are willing to increase the price, I, Hubner, am willing to hand over these 3 bottles of elixir. Give in. Everyone in the audience held their breath at this moment. Mr. Jones, it turned out that the one who had been competing to the end was Mr. Jones, the strongest man in Talon City. No wonder he was so confident. As for Habana, all the people in Talon City are also very familiar with it. The Noki family, which almost monopolizes all the medicinal materials business in Talon City, has a certain relationship with the high-level people in the kingdom. Only such a person dares to interact with him. Lord Jones, the most powerful man in Talon City, who represents Talon City's City Lord's palace, challenged. You win. After a long moment of silence, 3 words came from the box where Jones was sitting, and then there was no movement. Discount Haberner offered 450,000 yuan, is anyone willing to pay more? It is difficult to find traces of such a high-quality soul-restoring potion in the Kingdom of Orlando, let alone Talon City. Looking at it. In the silence of the whole place, the auctioneer spoke out again. Damn, of course we know this thing is precious, but we also have to have the strength to buy it. After hearing the auctioneer's words, many people's hearts were bleeding. If such a good thing is missed, it will be difficult to find. But this price, William Auctioneer, is it time to say it's over? Viscount Haberner said calmly in the box. William smiled slightly. Although Viscount Hubner was very powerful in Talon City, as the auctioneer of the Oliver family, he naturally had nothing to fear. He looked around the audience and William raised his hand. The small hammer knocked down. Congratulations to Viscount Haberner for purchasing the 3rd-level high-grade spiritual potion, the spirit-reviving potion, at a price of 450,000 spirit coins. After hearing the auctioneer's quotation, Jason showed a smile on his face. The price of 450,000 spirit coins from the auction price, after deducting a 5% handling fee, I could get more than 420,000 yuan. The next auction continues, but Jason has no intention to continue watching. If we talk about auctions, there are very large auctions in the entire continent. Jason has experienced countless auctions in his previous life, but Xiaobo, who is watching from the side, is so interested. For the sake of erection, Jason also accompanied Xiaobo to see what else was coming next. The second final item was a 5th-level spiritual core, which fetched a price of 350,000. The third final item is a spiritual weapon made by a famous craftsman in the Kingdom of Flaming Sword. It is engraved with the 4th-level spiritual skill Roaring Flames and many spiritual formations, which once again set off the bidding in the auction ***, and was finally acquired by others for a high price of 550,000 yuan. The final item in the entire auction was a volume of Xianbing Gong, a middle-grade star-level technique. The entire auction was extremely popular, and it was finally sold for 1.1 million. Such a price can be said to be well-deserved. Although the family that took the photo of the Xianbing Gong was bleeding because of the price of 1.1 million, they were still full of joy. After all, the spiritual core or the flaming sword, only one strong person can be created, but the middle-grade Xianbing Gong at the star level can always bring vigorous vitality to a family. Maybe because of this Xianbing Gong, there will be another one in Talon City in more than 10 years. A powerful family. After the auction, Jason and Xiaobo followed the flow of people out of the auction house's auction hall, and then walked towards the backstage hall of the auction house. After learning that Jason and the two were here to pick up the auction items, a waiter quickly led Jason and the two to the back to transfer money, pick up the goods, and handle some procedures. Just as Xiaobo was sitting there filling out the information, he saw President Saha of the Elixir Potions Union walking with a group of people from inside the auction house. Master Ronnie, who appraised the elixir for Jason that afternoon, and the middle-aged people are there too. President, Elder Ronnie. Seeing the group of people, Xiaobo immediately stopped filling in, stood aside, and saluted Saha and Ronnie. For Xiaobo, who works in the Elixir Guild, it is impossible to talk to him because of his status. However, when meeting the president and elders of the Elixir Guild outside, he cannot pretend not to know them and remain silent. Huh? Xiaobo, you also bought something at the auction? After seeing Xiaobo, Saha said with a smile. Saha still had some impression of this young man who worked diligently in the trade union. He remembered that the fact that Master JS answered 26 difficult questions in the trade union's difficult area within half a day was first discovered by the young man named Xiaobo in front of him. This Xiaobo reached the 9th level of elixir at the age of 18. Although he cannot be said to be a genius in the practice of elixir master, he is still slightly talented. At least in Saha's eyes, this Xiaobo is in the near future. It is not a problem to become a first-level low-grade elixir disciple within 2 years. Yes, President Saha. Seeing that President Saha actually remembered his name, Xiaobo's face flushed with excitement, and he even felt awkward speaking. I bought something at the auction, and it was that spiritual storage stone. After thinking about what he had photographed, Xiaobo couldn't help but feel a little depressed and stammered. Haha. After hearing that the thing Xiaobo photographed was the soul storage stone, Saha and others couldn't help but smile, and some even laughed outright. Damn. Hearing the laughter of Saha and others, Xiaobo glanced at Jason resentfully and almost found a hole to burrow down without shame. Jason rolled his eyes at Saha and the others in front of him. They didn't know the value of the Philosopher's Stone. They were a bunch of guys with no vision. Young man, do your best. Saha smiled and encouraged Xiaobo. He glanced at Jason and couldn't help but feel that he looked familiar. He finally recalled that he had seen this person at the gate of the Sith Spiritual Power Academy. Young people. Saha was in a pretty good mood today. After being informed by Ronnie that the Master JS he had been looking for had appeared at the Oliver auction house, Saha immediately came to the box where Master JS's iron plate was at the auction house in the evening and waited. With the emergence of JS Master. Although Master JS did not appear until the end of the auction, which made Saha feel a little regretful, but overall, Saha was quite happy. At least he had confirmed that Master JS had not left Talon City yet. Saha also saw the 3 bottles of soul-reviving potion before the auction. The master was indeed a master. Saha couldn't help but sigh in his heart. At least with his current strength, he was still unable to produce such a high-quality soul-reviving potion. President Saha and others quickly walked out of Xiaobo's sight, but what surprised Xiaobo was that Elder Ronnie kept looking at Jason beside him for some reason. The moment he walked out of the backstage hall, he couldn't help but look back at Jason. Ronnie didn't know why. When he saw Jason, he always felt that Jason looked familiar. He seemed to have seen him somewhere before, but he never connected Jason with the man in black robe who came to return the elixir in the afternoon. After getting the Sage's Stone, Jason and Xiaobo returned to the academy. After agreeing with Xiaobo to return the money to him tomorrow, Jason returned to the dormitory and took out the sage on his body. The stone looked at it carefully. A trace of black mist was swimming slowly in the Philosopher's Stone at this moment, like a small fish in the lake, extremely agile, and shining with magnificent brilliance under the light of the dormitory lights. This black mist was later proven to be the key factor that enabled the Philosopher's Stone to store a large amount of spiritual power and have a strong protective effect on spiritual power. Gently infiltrating a trace of the 7th-level spiritual power in his body into the Philosopher's Stone, Jason felt that his spiritual power was running in the Philosopher's Stone as if it were running through his own meridians without any hindrance. And losses. His spiritual sense swept over the entire Philosopher's Stone, and Jason couldn't help but nodded slightly. The Philosopher's Stone in his hand was not only larger in size, but also contained a lot of black mist, regardless of its area or quality. All on top of the 3 Philosopher's Stones that I had seen in my previous life. Hee hee. Jason smiled secretly and carefully put away the Philosopher's Stone. His mood was full of joy. He bought this Philosopher's Stone with 10,000 spirit coins. Such a good thing, Jason in his previous life could not even think about it. I dare not think that in the previous life, even if it was 100 million spirit coins, let alone 10,000 spirit coins, I might not be able to buy this Philosopher's Stone. As a priceless treasure, almost no one would be willing to sell the Philosopher's Stone. After putting away the Philosopher's Stone, Jason poured 2 more drops of bodybuilding liquid into the wooden bucket in the bathroom. After taking off his clothes, he soaked his whole body in the wooden bucket and continued to practice. In the short time this afternoon, he did not expand all the meridians from level 1 to level 7 in his body. Jason decided to complete this rather arduous task tonight. Wave after wave of powerful spiritual power violently impacted Jason's fragile meridians in Jason's body. Jason didn't even make a sound, letting big beads of sweat fall down his forehead. He controlled the 7th-level spiritual power and kept running. Listening over and over again the next morning, after Jason finished his training, he felt the completely widened meridians in his body and the abundant spiritual power in them. A smile appeared on his face. The pain last night was gone. In front of the results this morning, it seemed to disappear without a trace, and my heart was filled with an incomparable sense of accomplishment. Jason, who was a spiritual waste in his previous life, cherishes the opportunity God has given him to come back again. So in the next few days, Jason continued to practice in the dormitory without eating or sleeping. Occasionally, he would go to the market to see what was available to buy, and then tinker with some elixirs in the laboratory of the college's elixir department. Potion. Jason on this day, just as Jason had just finished washing and before he had time to go out for breakfast, Xiaobo's shout suddenly came from outside the door. "Damn, it's just that I haven't paid you back the money in the past 2 days, but you don't need to disturb people's dreams so early in the morning." Jason opened the door and looked at Xiaobo outside the door with a smile on his face. He had an expression of great contempt. Is this the number one person in your eyes, Xiaobo? Xiaobo looked at Jason with innocent eyes. I'm looking for you, because of business. Come on, I'll take you to a place. TCH, what's wrong with you? I haven't even had breakfast yet. Jason got dressed and followed Xiaobo out of the room. Okay, I'll treat you to a breakfast, isn't it? Xiaobo showed great generosity. I, Xiaobo, am short of everything except money. Really? Well, I'll take the 10,000 spirit coins. I'll pay you back later. No, I'm so poor now. I can't even afford food. Xiaobo quickly changed his mind. Where is this place? After having breakfast with Xiaobo, Jason was led by Xiaobo to a blue-gray, ordinary-looking house behind the college in confusion. As the only junior spiritual power academy in Talon City, although the Sith Spiritual Power Academy is not far from the center of Talon City, it occupies a large area with various buildings. Although Jason has been in the academy for more than 2 years, but in fact there are many places he has never been to. Xiaobo smiled mysteriously at Jason, and then opened the door to the room. Suddenly, a burst of shouts and cheers reached Jason's ears, and a spacious room of about 500 square meters appeared in front of Jason. The entire room is extremely spacious. There is a small arena in the center of the room. At this moment, 2 people are competing with each other on it, making loud roars. Around the room is a circle similar to a bar, with many people in 2s and 3s gathered around, watching the competition between the 2 people on the stage. Brother Xiao, you came quite early today. Seeing Xiaobo walking in, the 2 people sitting at the door immediately showed a smile on Xiaobo's face with a hint of respect, and at the same time glanced at Xiaobo. Jason, who was next to Bo, immediately turned his attention back to the stage. Xiaobo smiled and nodded, pulling Jason to sit in a corner. Everyone greeted Xiaobo wherever he went, and Xiaobo responded one by one. In Jason's sight, there were a dozen people in the whole room. Like Jason, they were all students in the academy. Jason also knew many of them, but all of them had reached the 9th level of spiritual power and were students of the academy. Jason, one of the most famous people in the academy, known as the best loser in the academy, had never interacted with these people before. After seeing Jason's confused look, Xiaobo smiled and said, "This is the leisure room of the academy's elite hall. In order to reach the 1st level as soon as possible, many people from the elite hall come here every day to exchange experiences and even compete. In order to be able to improve better." Jason nodded slightly. I have also heard about the elite hall. I heard that you can only enter after reaching the 9th level of spiritual power. Jason also heard a little about the elite hall in the academy. However, he had been worried about reaching the 6th level of spiritual power in the past, and he did not pay much attention to organizations like the elite hall that were similar to student clubs. Based on Jason's previous life experience, he also knew that not only the Sith Spiritual Power Academy, but also many academies across the continent, almost all of them have set up such organizations for the purpose of better communication and improvement among students. And for the best among these students, the college will usually give certain rewards based on their progress, in order to stimulate everyone's sense of competition. Let me ask, the top group of people in the entire college compete, practice, communicate, and make progress together. Can the speed be slower? Okay. At this moment, a burst of applause suddenly erupted from the surroundings, and the 2 people on the stage had already decided the winner. The winner was a young man wearing brown short sleeves, with muscles all over his body, with a red headband tied on his forehead, standing there panting slightly, looking at the opponent in front of him with a cold expression. Except for some white ash left from the battle, there was nothing else on his clothes. Wound. Standing opposite him was a long-haired young man wearing a white linen jacket. His hair was messy, and he was half kneeling there in a somewhat embarrassed manner. Half of his cheeks were swollen due to injuries. He looked forward with a face full of reluctance. At the corner of his mouth, there is still a trace of blood left here. Humph, Jialua, I thought you had made a lot of progress in the past 2 days, but that's all. Looking at the long-haired boy who was half kneeling in front of him, the winning boy snorted coldly, his tone with a trace of ridicule. He immediately turned around and walked down the ring. The young man known as Jialua just gritted his teeth, clenched his fists, and looked coldly. Haha, Zoff, you won again, but this time it took a little longer than last time. After seeing the winning boy coming down, some people in the audience smiled at Zoff. TCH, it's just that I was soft-hearted before and didn't do anything cruel. Zoff curled his lips slightly. That kid Jiao Luo has just been promoted to the 9th level for 3 months, ranking 30 in the hall, and he wants to come challenging me. Zoff is simply overestimating your abilities. Haha, don't tell me, Gallo is very talented, but it's a pity that he met you, Zoff. If you ask me, with Gallo's strength, challenge Tang, for those who are ranked outside 20, the ending may not be what it is. Lao Mo, I don't like hearing what you say, so let him try it, and I, Kraft, will take over from here. In addition, a young man sitting there, wearing a blue shirt, was a little dissatisfied. The one wearing brown short sleeves is called Zofu. He has been to the 9th level of spiritual power for more than a year. He is also considered an older generation of students in the hall. He ranks 9th in the hall. The one wearing a white linen top is called Zofu. Jialua, who has entered the 9th level of spiritual power for 3 months, is ranked 30 in the hall. Generally speaking, the hall can choose to challenge someone with a higher ranking than himself once a week. The two of them are a bit contradictory, so Jialua chooses the same one every time. It's off, and of course he loses every time. The one with short hair is called Lao Mo, and he is ranked 16th in the hall, and the one wearing the blue shirt is called Kraft, and he is ranked 23 in the hall. By the way, your roommate is called Carrot, he is also there. Ranked 6th in the hall, Xiaobo, who was sitting aside, was chatting with Jason and explaining the situation of everyone in the room to Jason. Looking at Jialua, who walked down the ring silently, Jason smiled slightly. It seemed that the elite hall was not too harmonious, but it was true that competition would lead to progress. In this case, this is also what the teachers of the college are happy to see, otherwise they would not come up with a ranking system. Brother Xiao, you're here too. At this time, many people also saw Xiaobo, who had just arrived in the room, and immediately many people came up to say hello to Xiaobo. Brother Xiao, who is this next to you? You don't want to introduce it to us all? A young man said to Xiaobo with some doubts. His name is Shili. Xiaobo also introduced him to Jason before, and he ranked 10th in the hall. 5. You don't know Jason either. He's a big celebrity in our college. After hearing Shili's question, some other teenagers who knew Jason immediately started talking and publicized Jason's recent deeds. After all, Jason was the first news in the Sith Spiritual Power Academy. In fact, they had seen Jason before, but they didn't know what Xiaobo meant by bringing Jason here, so they didn't ask any more questions. In fact, although Jason is very famous, he is only among the ordinary students outside. Elite students like these, who have basically reached the 9th level of spiritual power, are all focused on cultivation. They all know that all fame and so on are fake. The most important thing for them now is to reach the first level of spiritual disciple and become a true spiritual master as soon as possible. Moreover, these people basically go out to do some tasks and join some adventure teams. Just like Jason's roommate Carrot, he disappeared for a few days. The college did not interfere much, so many people even you may have heard of Jason, but you haven't seen him in person, so you don't know him. Haha, Jason is my friend, so I brought him here to see and communicate with you. But I believe that with Jason's strength, he will be able to join our elite hall soon. Xiaobo said with a smile. Xiaobo, what do you mean? I heard that Jason only has the 6th level of spiritual power. It seems against the rules for you to bring this kind of strength now. After hearing Jason's name, Zoff with a glint in his eyes, he stepped forward and looked at Jason in front of him with disdain. Xiaobo chuckled and said, Zoff, then you don't know something. Jason has reached the 7th level of spiritual power, and his real strength is more than that. Huh, 7th level of spiritual power? That doesn't fit either. Rules, what does spiritual power level 7 mean? Do you think our elite hall is a garbage dump? Zoff looked at Jason and sneered. Jason couldn't help but be surprised. He didn't seem to have any grudge against the guy named Zoff in front of him. Why did he feel like he had eaten gunpowder? Although Xiaobo has a very good temper, he couldn't help but feel a little angry when he heard Zoff's obviously troublesome words. Understanding why Zoff targeted Jason in this way, his face turned cold. Zoff, I don't care about you. What does it have to do with Kate? Don't bring your personal friendship to the elite hall. I brought Jason, and he definitely has the strength to come in. Wasn't that Kate also brought to the elite hall by you as a peripheral disciple? Didn't you just lose to Jason? Xiaobo, as one of the only 3 students of the 6th Spiritual Power Academy with level 9 elixirs, has already reached the level of a first-level low-level spiritual disciple. He ranked 2nd among the 36 students in the elite hall, and his status was much higher than that of Zoff. Seeing that Zoff was still so ignorant when he saw that he was so easy to talk before, Xiaobo couldn't help but feel a trace of anger in his heart. That's just Kate being careless for a moment. A loser who just reached the 6th level of spiritual power a few days ago actually defeated Kate, who has been at the 8th level for more than half a year. It's a joke. Who knows what methods he used? Zoff sneered, pointed at Jason and said, Now, get out of here. Zoff, since Brother Xiao brought Jason here, I believe he must have his reasons. Forget it. When the students on the side saw what was going on here, they noticed that the smell of gunpowder in the air was getting stronger and stronger, and they all started to dissuade them. There are 36 official members of the elite hall of the 6th Spiritual Power Academy. The top 3 are 3 students who have reached the 9th level of elixir. Among the remaining students, except for 5 students who have reached the 8th level of elixir, the rest are all students who have broken through to the 9th level of spiritual power. Basically, in addition to their achievements in elixir science, students at the elixir level generally have higher strength than their elixir level. For example, a student with level 8 elixir must have at least level 8 spiritual consciousness, and usually it is above level 8, at level 9, or level 1, so his spiritual power level is also higher than the level of elixir. In the elite hall, in addition to the 36 formal students who have reached the 9th level of spiritual power, there are also some students who have reached the 8th level of spiritual power. They will also be brought by those formal students for observation and exchange. After all, they have reached after reaching the 8th level of spiritual power, maybe one day he will break through to the 9th level and become a formal member. However, bringing a 7th level student here has basically never appeared in the history of the elite hall. After all, the 7th level is 2 levels behind the 9th level. Of course, a person like Xiaobo, who ranks 2nd in the hall, students, bring Jason here, and most people won't say anything. After all, this is not an express rule, and no one says it's not allowed. It's just a little unreasonable. The reason why Zoff would rather offend Xiaobo and drive Jason out was because of Kate. Everyone knew it in their hearts. Both Xiaobo and Zoff didn't want to offend the people around them. They just tried to dissuade them softly from the side. Zoff and Kate have an excellent relationship. Zoff, who has reached the 9th level of spiritual power for more than a year, knows that it will not take long for him to become a first-level spiritual disciple. He is unwilling to be an adventurer and only wants to live in Talon City. Find a permanent job. After learning that Kate, the son of Baron Harvey, the commander of the Talon City Guards, was also studying at the 6th Spiritual Power Academy, Zoff deliberately made friends with him. While guiding Kate, he also brought Kate to study in the elite hall. Zoff knew very well that with his strength as a first-level spiritual disciple after graduation, as long as he had a good relationship with Baron Harvey, it would be more than enough to serve as a squad leader in the Talon City Guards. Therefore, after hearing that the guy Xiaobo brought in front of him was Jason who defeated Kate, in order to vent his anger for Kate, and to leave a good impression on Baron Harvey, Zoff did not hesitate to offend Xiaobo, but also wanted to teach him a lesson. Look at Jason in front of him. After listening to what everyone said, Jason, who was quick thinking, also understood why Zoff had such a bad attitude towards him. Although Jason was very interested in a place like the elite hall where he could learn a lot of things, he also understood he just stood there and smiled lightly, not caring about Zoff's lack of face. He was just a junior college student. In Jason's eyes, Zoff could only be described as a child. But when Zoff pointed at himself and yelled to get out, Jason's face darkened in vain. He didn't care about you. It didn't mean that he could tolerate your arrogance, but he just didn't take you seriously. Your name is Zoff, right? I don't care what your relationship is with Kate, just take your dog's paws away. Jason stopped Xiaobo, who was about to step forward to defend himself, and said coldly with a gloomy face. His eyes were as sharp as a knife, piercing Zoff's heart. Looking at him was like looking at an insignificant creature. Ants. Trash, what did you say? Feeling Jason's eyes, Zoff's heart felt like he was being pricked by a needle. He sneered and stepped forward. In an instant, his right foot turned into a shadow and moved toward Jason. His chest was suddenly kicked away. He had already decided to teach this arrogant boy a lesson. Zoff's attack happened completely instantaneously without any warning. By the time everyone noticed it, the shadow of Zoff's legs had almost reached Jason's chest. Feeling Zoff's attack, Xiaobo's face changed involuntarily, but it was too late. In fact, Zoff knew in his heart that there was a first-level low-level spiritual disciple, Xiaobo, standing next to Jason. With him around, he couldn't teach Jason a lesson at all. He could only use an unexpected method to kill Jason with one blow. Sen was injured, and Zoff had secretly used 8 levels of force on this leg. Zoff could already imagine how painful the boy in front of him would fly out under his blow. A small person with a spiritual power of level 7 would have to break a few sternums and stay in bed for 2 months after suffering such a blow from him. A cruel smile appeared on Zoff's lips. Other students saw Zoff suddenly taking action. Feeling the force Zoff used, they couldn't help but feel a little pity for Jason. Just when everyone thought that Jason was about to be knocked out by Zoff, Jason, who was standing there blankly and seemingly unable to react in time, suddenly transformed into a phantom, and his whole body magically flashed towards Zoff in an instant. In front of him, he grabbed the right leg that Zoff kicked out with his fingers. Jason's body staggered backward slightly, taking the pressure off Zoff's right leg, and then moved upward slightly, causing Zoff's body to lean back and lose his center of gravity. No. Zoff said in his heart. At this moment, he had no time to think about how Jason did all this. Zoff, who has a lot of practical experience, suddenly flexed his left leg, and his 9th-level spiritual power exploded. As soon as it is fired, it will fly and kick out. However, how could Jason, who had calculated all of this, let him get what he wanted? Before Zoff's left foot even left the ground, Jason, who had 7 levels of spiritual power running wildly in his body and had accumulated enough energy, had already punched out. Bang fist! Jason shouted in his mouth, and his right hand, which was bent into a fist, followed an incredible trajectory and hit Zoff's exposed chest. All the 7th-level spiritual power contained in the 1st-level meridians in Jason's body, at this moment, it seemed that he had found an outlet to vent his anger, gushing out along the meridians of Jason's right arm. Bang, there was a muffled sound. Under this force, Zoff's body was like a broken sandbag, and he was hit hard and flew out. A burst of force exploded directly in Zoff's chest, exciting. There was a faint ripple, which scattered the spiritual power that Zoff had gathered around his body. This was just the beginning. The power of the blow was not lost. Jason swayed forward, and the transformed figure caught up with Zoff. His right fist hit Zoff again. All 7 of the secondary meridians in his body's super spiritual power spurted out at this moment, once again sending a burst of strength to Zoph's flying body. Bang! The body protecting spiritual power on Zoph's chest was once again scattered, a little shaky. Zoph was shocked as his body was flying in mid-air after being hit. At this moment, he had no power to fight back. He just hoped that he would land quickly. With his understanding of the 7th level of spiritual power, Jason could not resist these two powers. After using the strength, there should be no more strength to take action. Unfortunately, he thought wrong. Jason made a series of sneaky moves and once again caught up with Zoph in mid-air. His right fist once again imprinted on Zoph's chest, and the 7th level spiritual power in the 3rd level meridians surged out crazily. Bang! The protective spiritual power on Zoph's chest was directly scattered and shattered by this blow, and he let out a muffled groan in mid-air. There was already a hint of fear in Zoph's eyes, but this was not the end. Jason stepped forward quickly, and his whole body had turned into an afterimage. He gathered his fingers together and punched again. This time, the 7th level spiritual power in the 4th level meridians directly entered Zoph's body, wreaking havoc. Then Jason flew forward again. Bang! Several sounds of broken bones came from Zoph's chest in front of him, a mouthful of blood spurted out from Zoph's mouth, and his whole body flew around the room. It went out a full 10 meters away, and then hit an ironwood table heavily. Bang! The hard ironwood table shattered into countless fragments under this blow and scattered in all directions. Zoph's body fell heavily to the ground, and his eyes widened as he looked at Jason, who was standing not far away. Deep in his eyes, he revealed deep fear. Poof! Zoph spat out a mouthful of blood again, his whole body twitched, and he fainted on the ground. The strength of the fist is broken, and the 5 strengths are fired in succession. These 5 consecutive attacks were completed in an instant. What others saw was that Zoph missed his kick and was blocked by Jason. Jason punched Zoph, and then flew forward again, several times in a row. Punch, and then there was a crackling sound from Zoph's sternum, blood spurted out from his mouth, and he fell to the ground. A few careful students also discovered that under Zoph's collapsed sternum, the hard marble floor was covered with small spider web-like cracks, centered on Zoph, spreading to all sides, and covered with all around. With one move, he knocked out Zoph, the 9th level spiritual master ranked 9th in the elite hall, and his life or death was uncertain. The huge vibration attracted the attention of everyone in the room. For a moment, everyone including Xiaobo was dumbfounded. They looked at Jason, who was standing there calmly, with a look of disbelief on his face, his eyes dull. There was an eerie silence in the whole room. Everyone who had been standing there to dissuade them was in a daze. A few people still rubbed their eyes in disbelief. Everything that had happened before made it difficult for them to accept it for a while. But Jialua, who had previously lost to Zoph on the stage, was looking at Jason now, but his eyes were shining. Although in yesterday's duel with Kate, Jason also defeated Kate, who had entered the 8th level of spiritual power for more than half a year, but according to Xiaobo, Jason and Kate were only 1 level behind after all, so it was excusable. But in front of me, this person is ranked 9th in the elite hall. He has entered the 9th level of spiritual power for more than a year and is about to become a 1st level spiritual disciple. Although Zoph had just met the boy Garona before, the battle took a lot of energy, but such a strong man wouldn't still be beaten by Jason until he vomited blood with just one punch, and his life or death would be unknown, right? Everyone in the elite hall is well aware of Zoph's strength. The 9th rank in the hall is not something that can be obtained casually. It is obtained by challenging one by one. Knock down Zoph with one move? Is it possible? If this is the case, is the Jason in front of him just a student with level 7 spiritual power? I'm afraid it's not that easy for a 1st level low-level spiritual disciple to defeat Zoph so easily. What's more important is that everyone present has come from the 7th level of spiritual power. When did the 7th level of spiritual power be able to easily break through the protection of the 9th level of spiritual power? However, it was able to smash Zoph's sternum, and his falling body smashed a table made of iron and wood, leaving such horrific traces of destruction on the ground. Such a huge force was even stronger than the full strength of a 9th-level spiritual student. It's terrifying that every blow will come. Do students with level 7 spiritual power have such terrifying strength? Jason glanced at everyone present coldly, his eyes piercing everyone's hearts as sharply as a knife. The 9th level of spiritual power is nothing more than that. Everyone present stared blankly. Jason, when faced with this sentence from a 7th level spiritual power student, no one said a word, because Jason's previous blow was too shocking. Just when everyone was stunned, a burst of noise suddenly came from the door of the room, and then a group of people walked in directly from the door. The leader is a girl wearing red leather armor, about 10 years old, with black hair hanging behind her head, a trace of heroism between her eyebrows, a short sword diagonally across her waist, and a short sword in red leather. Under the skirt is a pair of red leather boots, which gives the whole person an extremely fresh and heroic feeling. Following him, there were 3 teenagers either carrying baggage or holding weapons in their hands, all dusty. What surprised Jason was that among these 3 teenagers, his roommate Carrot was also there. Sister Linda. After seeing the black-haired woman, everyone present recovered from their daze and stepped forward to say hello, with a hint of respect in their tone. This Linda is the number 1 in the elite hall of the Sith Spiritual Power Academy. Her strength has reached the 1st level intermediate spiritual disciple, and she is the 9th level elixir. In the Sith Spiritual Power Academy, any student can graduate as long as he reaches the 1st level of spiritual disciple. However, although Linda and Xiaobo have both reached the 1st level of spiritual disciple, they are only studying spiritual medicine at the same time. They are at the 9th level, so they don't have to graduate and wait until they become a 1st level elixir apprentice before graduating. The academy won't have any difficulties. What's going on? I just came back from the mission and you gave me this scene? Seeing the smoky situation in the room, the girl in the lead couldn't help but frown slightly, with a hint of reproach in her tone, and her eyes glanced at the crowd. Afterwards, it finally stayed on Xiaobo's face. Xiaobo, why did Zoph offend you? Let you be so cruel? In Linda's eyes, Xiaobo was the only one among so many people present who had the strength injured Zoph like this. At this time, everyone who came back to their senses was busy helping Zoph up, who was unconscious there. After seeing Zoph's miserable state, Linda could not help but feel a trace of anger in her heart. The original joy of completing the task also faded at this moment. A lot. He was the one who struck first, and others were just defending themselves. Regarding Zoph's sudden attack, Xiaobo still had a trace of anger in his heart. Fortunately, Jason blocked Zoph's attack, otherwise Xiaobo would have been injured here. Will feel guilty. Others are acting in self-defense? Linda's eyes scanned the entire venue, and then fell on Jason, who was standing there, coldly. Carrot, who was in the crowd, had already noticed Jason standing there, winking at Jason with a playful smile behind Linda, although he didn't know that Jason would appear here. After seeing Linda's confused look, someone immediately told Linda exactly what happened before. Because Xiaobo and Jason were both present, there was nothing embellished about the whole process, but the tone was still a little more towards Zoph. After all, Zoph, as a member of the elite hall, was beaten like this by an outsider like Jason, which made the people present quite uncomfortable. After hearing what the student said, Linda carefully looked at Jason in front of her again. Her eyes showed a hint of shock when she looked at Jason, and then she was as cold as ice. You are the one who injured Zoph. Guy? He's only at the 7th level of spiritual power? What's going on? Carrot, who knew Jason best, was shocked. Damn, didn't Jason just break through to the 6th level a few days ago? When did this guy reach the 7th level of spiritual power? And also Zoph, isn't it too exaggerated to be beaten like this, with a pig-ass head? However, he was surprised. Carrot still stood behind Linda and secretly gave Jason a thumbs up. ignoring that the two people next to him heard. The student had a gloomy look on his face after he said that Zoff was injured by a foreign student. Jason stopped. Xiaobo, who was about to explain, took a step forward and said, "I don't like him, that's all." Jason, who was not a member of the elite hall, couldn't deal with Linda, who was so arrogant and angry as soon as she came in. Cold, this young lady who looks like a spoiled one at first glance, is the girl Carrot has always told himself before, the girl he likes and has been pursuing? His character is not that good either. Jason shook his head secretly. The chill in Linda's eyes was even worse. Her gaze fell on Xiaobo, who was standing aside. There was still a hint of reproach in her tone. "Xiaobo, you brought this Jason. After all, Zoff is also a member of our elite hall." A member of the elite hall was beaten like this by a low-level student. "Is this what you, the number 2 of the elite hall, did during the past few days when I was away?" "Hee, Sister Linda, I believe Jason is not such a person. And I think it was just an unintentional mistake, so forget it." Seeing that Linda seemed angry, Carrot hurriedly stood up and smiled playfully at Linda, and then gave Jason 2 looks, meaning don't do it again. "If you are tough talking, just say a few nice words." Linda's face darkened. "Carrot, this is none of your business, please stand aside." Carrot continued to smile. "Sister Linda, Jason is my roommate. Carrot, don't you even listen to what I say? Do you hear me when I ask you to stand aside?" Linda directly interrupted. Carrot took a step forward, looked at Jason coldly, and said, "Boy, I won't embarrass you, but if you hurt someone in our elite hall, for the sake of being a fellow student, as long as you break the hand that hurts off, and then apologize, this matter our elite hall will not pursue the matter." The expressions of Xiaobo and Carrot changed, but Jason's face still had an indifferent expression. Sister Linda. Carrot still wanted to speak. Linda waved her hand directly and said coldly, "Carrot, please go out now and go back and have a good rest. I don't think you have been out for so many days. If you're tired, if you intercede for him again, don't blame me for falling out." Carrot's whole body couldn't help but be startled. After a while, he came back to his senses, glanced at Linda beside him with a complicated expression, and then remained silent. Stood in front of Jason. "You." Linda raised her eyebrows coldly, her tone full of anger. She never thought that Carrot, who had always obeyed her words, would actually disobey her at this moment, and even sided with him. Be against each other. Carrot has always secretly liked herself, and Linda also knew it. However, Linda was born in a nobler family and was stronger than Carrot in terms of strength. Linda had not heard anything about Carrot in the academy. Because of the big background, Linda just flirted with the handsome Carrot. Although she had a slight affection in her heart, Linda knew that it was impossible for her to like this young man who was not as outstanding as herself in all aspects. By his side, there was a boy who was much better than Carrot. But at this moment, Carrot, who would have obeyed him no matter what, actually stood against him because a roommate dared not to listen to him. For a moment, Linda felt as if one of her beloved toys had been taken away by someone else, and a surge of anger rose in her heart. "Carrot, you kid, come here." Linda couldn't help but scream, otherwise I'll deal with you as well." Carrot shook his head and looked at Lynn, who was in anger. Des suddenly smiled, but the smile was full of bitterness. "Jason is my brother, and dealing with him means dealing with me." Carrot always thought that he was so good to Linda, even if she didn't like him. It was rare for him to think about himself, but when he saw that Linda refused to let him speak at all and rejected him directly, he discovered that he was in Linda's heart. No matter how hard he tried, he could not do anything. There is no status at all, it has always been that way. At this moment, Carrot understood in his heart that the girl he once loved so much had gradually moved away from him because of his actions today, but in the bottom of Carrot's heart, he did not regret it at all. Looking at Carrot with a bitter smile, but an extremely firm figure standing in front of him, Jason was inexplicably moved in his heart. In his previous life, Jason went from a young boy with nothing to finally standing at the top of the continent. Along the way, he had many enemies, many attendants, many allies, but no true friend. However, at this moment, looking at Xiaobo and Carrot standing in front of him, Jason suddenly realized in his heart that in addition to the improvement of strength, his pursuit after rebirth also had something else that he needed to protect. That is, a sincere friendship that I have never had in my previous life. I woke up early in the morning and saw 8 recommendations, sweat. Xiaoshi has been writing books at Qidian for 4 years since 2006. He is an embarrassment, unprecedented embarrassment, 55,555, Carrot. Linda looked at Carrot with cold eyes, and what was revealed in her eyes was undisguised anger. Sister Linda, that kid Carrot is so shameless. He dares not even listen to you. A young man standing behind Linda took a step forward and looked at Carrot with a sinister look. Love, ranked 4th in the elite hall, is currently the most promising student in the elite hall to become a spiritual disciple. Like Carrot, he also likes Linda. Seeing such a good opportunity today, he naturally wants to step forward and resist Carrot. Destroy 2 sentences. Okay, very good. Linda said very good several times in her mouth, her eyes swept over everyone in the room. Since this kid doesn't do anything himself, we in the elite hall can't let others bully him to death. Who of you let me execute it? There was a commotion among the people present in the elite hall, and they looked at each other. They had seen Jason attacking them fiercely before. Although they were really angry when they saw Linda, who dared to really come forward to look for them. Jason's bad luck. Seeing that no one came forward to take action after hearing what she said, Linda was so angry that her lungs were about to explode, and her sharp eyes scanned the faces of everyone in the room. After feeling Linda's gaze, the students in the elite hall lowered their heads involuntarily, not daring to raise their heads to look at her. Against Jason? Isn't that asking for death? Jason's previously exposed strength made everyone present tremble in their hearts. If he really wanted to step forward, he might not even know how to write the word death. Zoff, who was being held unconscious over there, was very worried. Good role model. Seeing Linda's furious look, Jason couldn't help but laugh, then shook his head slightly and said loudly, "That Linda, right? Do you really think this elite hall is yours?" Elite Hall is an organization established by the Academy to encourage competition and growth among students, and you are currently the strongest among them. All the students in the elite hall present here are all good-blooded men, and they are all equal to you. They are not subordinates who obey your orders. When one day their strength exceeds yours, you will be just an ordinary member of them. After speaking, Jason's eyes swept across the audience and sneered, I heard that everyone in the elite hall is the best in the academy, a well-known iron-blooded man, and I was quite expecting it. Now it seems that they are either extremely arrogant and bullying others, or they are being dominated by a woman. Being silent is nothing more than that. Jason's words made most of the students in the elite hall present lower their heads. Boy, what are you talking about? Love, who was standing next to Linda, took a step forward and pointed at Jason with a sharp weapon. Since others are unwilling to take action, let me, Love, teach you a lesson. Love looked at there was a trace of disdain in Jason's eyes, but I couldn't help feeling secretly happy in my heart. This occasion happened to be the time for me to show my majestic side in front of Linda. I had to teach that kid so much that he didn't even know his mother later. He cannot. I want to impress Linda on me and let her know who is really protecting her. Love, get out of here, it's not your turn to speak here. Xiaobo walked out with a gloomy face, stood in front of Love, and then smiled apologetically at Jason. Today, he obviously wanted to bring Jason to have a good experience, but he didn't expect it to end up like this. This made Xiaobo feel guilty for Jason. If Jason hadn't been so powerful before, he might have been killed by Zoff's attack. The next one was injured, and now everyone wants to make trouble against Jason. Even though Xiaobo has a very good temper, he can't help but feel anger welling up at this moment. Others are afraid of Linda and want to curry favor with Linda, but Xiaobo, who has also become a spiritual disciple and has reached the 9th level in spiritual medicine, is not afraid of Linda at all. Although Linda has reached the 1st level of intermediate level, and she is only the 1st level of low level, but if we really fight, it is still uncertain who will win and who will lose. Besides, no matter how strong Linda is, she dares to hurt her brother, herself. We must also stand up without hesitation. Seeing Xiaobo standing in front of him, Love took a step back hesitantly. He dared to yell at people who were weaker than him. Like Xiaobo, Love withered. Xiaobo, do you have to go against me? Seeing that everyone was going against her today, Linda suppressed the anger in her chest and softened her tone. She was able to rank first in the elite hall at the age of 19. Linda, who has reached the 1st level intermediate spiritual disciple and the 9th level elixir, is not an idiot. It's not that I want to go against you, but if you have to make trouble for my friend, I can't back down. If you have the ability, just ask the academy to remove me from the elite hall. Xiaobo smiled calmly at Linda. He smiled, then turned to Jason and Carrot and said, "Let's go." Xiaobo, what if I have to keep that guy today? Linda looked at Xiaobo with dagger-like eyes. Now that things have happened, Linda understands that it is not just about teaching that guy a lesson, but also a competition between herself and Xiaobo. If she gives in today, I am afraid that many people in the elite hall will no longer do it in the future. Be submissive to yourself, let alone obey your words. Xiaobo looked at Linda with an unchanged expression and his eyes were as steady as a mountain. Then you should try it. Although you are a woman, I can guarantee that I will never hold back. You are the number 1 in the elite hall. Well, I will too. I want to try what it feels like. If I were you, I would never choose to take action. Just when the situation was tense and on the verge of breaking out, Jason suddenly stepped forward, looked at Linda with a deep look and said, "Every time you fight now, do you feel a dull pain in the meridians of your body?" At first it was only in the abdomen, but later it gradually spread to the whole body. The strength of the original 1st level intermediate level can only be used to the 1st level low level, and even lower. How did you, after hearing what Jason said? Linda, who was originally full of anger, suddenly looked at Jason in shock, her tone full of disbelief. Jason smiled slightly and continued, "If I guessed correctly, there should be a few green dots on your stomach now, and whenever you fight, those green dots will cause pain, and they will also there are traces of green fine lines emerging and spreading all over the body. In your current state, it is impossible to defeat Xiaobo. Not to mention that fierce fighting will make your condition worse. I advise you to find someone to treat you as soon as possible." Well, although this disease will not kill people, it will only cause severe pain and affect people's strength, but for women, if they are not treated in time, they are likely to lose their ability to have children. If the expression on Linda's face before was one of shock, Linda's expression at this moment was as if she had seen a ghost. Her eyes were wide open, her little cherry mouth was slightly opened, her expression was nervous, and her eyes were full of fear. It was unbelievable, even with a hint of fear. Seeing Linda's reaction, Xiaobo and others all looked at Jason in shock. From Linda's expression, everyone understood that what Jason said was probably right, but when would Jason be cured? Are you so good at getting sick? Carrot's face on the side looked a little disappointed. No wonder Linda always felt a little weird during this mission. It seemed that her true strength had never been shown. It turned out to be like this. Let's go. Looking at Linda with a shocked face, Jason, Xiaobo, and Carrot walked out of the room of the elite hall. This time, Linda, who was in shock, didn't even dare to stop her, because everything Jason said before had entered her heart. Linda, who had been troubled by this sudden situation in her body, was so worried. One can imagine the shock in Jason's heart when Jason revealed the secret. That's right. Just as the 3 of them walked out of the entrance of the elite hall, Jason suddenly turned around and said, "Women inevitably have a few days every month, but it is better to reduce the anger, otherwise the disease will expand. It will be faster." This time, Linda was so surprised that she couldn't even speak. She just stared wide-eyed, her face was pale, and her mind was confused. Jason, is what you just said true? How did you know that Linda was sick? As soon as he walked out of the room of the elite hall, Carrot couldn't wait to ask Jason, and Xiaobo on the side also asked, looking at Jason with curiosity. Seeing the two people with puzzled faces, Jason smiled and said, "What's the problem? Don't you smell Linda's scent?" Smell? Carrot and Xiaobo looked at each other in confusion, and then a flash of color suddenly appeared in Carrot's eyes. You mean deodorant? Jason rolled his eyes at Carrot, and couldn't help but want to give this kid a hammer. What's going on in his head? A mess. She smells like an ethereal flower, and have you noticed that the fingertips of her right hand emit a light green fluorescence when held against the light? That is the trace left by long-term exposure to the green charm stone. What's more, the important thing is that when she is angry, there will be a hint of green energy on her face. Carrot and Xiaobo looked at each other again, but Jason turned his attention to Xiaobo. Seeing Xiaobo's full expression after looking at him with confusion, Jason couldn't help but sigh. Linda is a 9th-level elixir student. If she wants to become a first-level low-level elixir disciple, she must be able to prepare 3 different first-level low-grade elixirs. Among all the first-level low-grade elixirs, the ethereal flower is the main material for making analgesic medicine. Because analgesic medicine is mainly used to produce a rapid low temperature around the wound after an injury to relieve pain and slow down the infection and spread of the wound, so the medicine is extremely cold and green. Charm stone is one of the basic materials for making charm poison. Green charm stone contains an extremely weak neurotoxin. After encountering cold substances, the activity of the neurotoxin will be enhanced. At this point, Jason paused and continued, if Linda is making one of the 2 potions for a long time, as long as she pays attention, nothing may happen. But she is actually trying to prepare the 2 potions at the same time. Cold poison, the 2 toxins and charm poison accumulated together and produced a chain reaction, so it was easy to judge that Linda was poisoned. One of the most obvious manifestations of being poisoned by charm poison is that the skin on her face will turn faintly green. As a result, it's that simple. Seeing Jason talking incessantly, Xiaobo, who like Linda had reached the 9th level of the elixir, was completely stunned. Jason's understanding of the properties of the elixir made his heart extremely shocking. Carrot, on the other hand, kept looking up and down at Jason in front of him with a face full of surprise. After Jason finished speaking, he said with uncertainty in his tone, "Holy crap, is this still the Jason I know? I remember your elixir science is probably only at the 1st level, right? Why do you listen to you like this? I feel like I am listening to a lecture by a master of elixir." Jason rolled his eyes at Carrot in front of him, but when it came to his own, I understand that in the entire college, my roommate Carrot, who has been with him for more than 2 years, is the most profound. As he said, Jason's file in the elixir department of the college is really at the level of elixir. The lowest level, of course, is also a relationship that Jason did not re-verify. Xiaobo took a deep look at Jason standing there with a look of renewed recognition. If Xiaobo and Jason were just a simple acquaintance in fengshui at the beginning, then after constantly getting along with Jason, Xiaobo discovered that this Jason could surprise him every time. After hesitating for a while, an inexplicable courage made Xiaobo feel cruel. He asked Jason for advice with a little reverence in his tone. "Jason, how do you think I can work hard to advance to become a real first-order spirit medicine apprentice?" It has been more than a year since Xiaobo reached the 9th level of elixir. During this more than a year, he has been interning at Talon City's Elixir Medicine Union and learned many things, but he has been unable to successfully prepare 3 first-level elixirs. Use low-grade elixirs to become a true elixir disciple. After hearing what Jason said before, for some reason, Xiaobo had an inexplicable idea in his heart. Maybe Jason could point him out. This idea was so absurd, but Xiaobo still asked Jason out. Jason pondered for a moment. After today's incident, Jason had truly regarded Xiao Bo as his friend, so Jason decided to help Xiao Bo from the bottom of his heart. There is a faint dent around your finger, which is the mark caused by the long-term use of the medicine clip, and the medicine clip is not used much in the preparation of the first-order low-grade spiritual potion. If I guessed correctly, what I have been trying to prepare now should be the spiritual fluid used for weapon forging in the first-level low-grade spiritual potion, which can enhance the weapon's resistance to spirituality. This hearing Jason just look at his fingers, he said after figuring out the elixir he had been trying to prepare recently. Xiao Bo was shocked and suddenly felt confident in Jason. The spiritual liquid is a medium difficulty spiritual potion among the first-level low-grade spiritual potions, but with your accumulation, there is still a high chance that you can successfully prepare it. The most critical reason why you have not been able to successfully prepare it's because you haven't truly understood the essence of preparing elixirs. The essence of preparing elixirs? Xiao Bo had a trace of confusion in his eyes. The preparation of spiritual potion is a very delicate process. Any trivial mistake or change will affect the preparation of the entire spiritual potion. Take the spiritual liquid as an example. I will not talk about advanced things such as spiritual consciousness control, but just starting from the simplest detail. In the third step of preparing a dose standard spiritual liquid, the material that needs to be added is 5 grams of fresh crystal spirit leaves. So, do you know the weight of this leaf? Jason casually asked from the side. He picked a leaf from a tree and asked Xiao Bo. This Xiao Bo showed a trace of embarrassment on his face. Jason smiled softly. If I'm not wrong, you will use an instrument to weigh 5 grams of crystal spirit leaves every time before preparing the spirit liquid, so there is nothing new about it. On this point, you will never be able to prepare a truly high-quality spirit enchanting liquid. Looking at the leaves in Jason's hand, Xiao Bo thought thoughtfully. First-order spiritual potions are extremely basic in the preparation of spiritual potions. With your current strength, it should not be difficult. The reason why you failed to prepare the spiritual potions is because you have not done every detail to the best. As a result, every preparation you make falls short. While Xiao Bo was deep in thought, Jason's thoughts seemed to drift back to his previous life, to the time when he was teaching his followers on Halloween Mountain. Damn, so awesome. Carrot on the side was stunned by Jason. Jason, what do you think I can do to become a real elixir master from the 5th level of elixir? You? Jason glanced at Carrot. If you don't get rid of your lazy habits first, well, I think it might be possible in your next life. Carrot couldn't help but look up to the sky and sigh. Jason, you don't need to hurt me like this. After all, I, Carrot, am considered the #1 person in the Sith Spiritual Power Academy. After listening to Jason's words, Xiao Bo bowed deeply to Jason with a respectful expression. As if he had realized something, he hurriedly bid farewell to Jason and Carrot, and hurriedly walked towards the academy. Run to the elixir department laboratory. And Carrot has been doing tasks outside these days. Although he was extremely surprised that Jason was able to defeat Zoff and had such a deep knowledge of elixirs, he was very nervous after learning that Jason had something else. Pretending to be harsh, he decided to torture Jason again tonight and quickly ran back to the dormitory to sleep. For Carrot, there is nothing more exciting than rest. After seeing Xiao Bo and Carrot walking away, Jason smiled and shook his head, and walked out of the academy as he still had something to do. In a short time, Jason came to a spirit coin store near the college, transferred 10,000 spirit coins from his card to Xiao Bo, and then Jason walked straight towards the west side of Talon City. As Jason continued to move forward, the surrounding buildings became more and more bleak. Jason, who had left the bustling area of Talon City, kept walking through alleys. He didn't know how long he had been turning, but suddenly there was a tinkling sound in Jason's ears. Jason was delighted. After turning a corner, he saw an old rod stuck in front of a house not far ahead. Flag, and on that flag, the words blacksmith shop were written. This is it. Jason walked forward quickly and saw that inside the blacksmith shop, a young man in his 20s was wielding a giant hammer in his hand. constantly hitting a piece of red-hot iron. The airwaves made the young man's bronze skin covered with beads of sweat, but the young man ignored it and stared intently at the iron block in front of him, hammering it down rhythmically. Behind the young man, an old man with a mottled beard was sitting there, swinging a cattail leaf fan, with his clothes open, half drowsing, looking flatly at the young man who kept tapping. After seeing Jason walk in, neither of them raised their heads, or even glanced at Jason. "Excuse me, is Mr. Tiger here?" In order to make a good gravity pendant, Jason spent a long time asking about the Elixir Guild. He even spent money to buy some information, and finally found out that Talon City's most famous the blacksmith is the chief blacksmith of the mainland chain weapons store, Shinbing, located in the city, but in fact, the best blacksmith in Talon City is Tiger, who lives in the west of the city. It is said that Tiger was born in Talon City. He was the #1 blacksmith in Talon City when he was a boy. Later, he went to the royal city of the kingdom and learned how to make weapons. He became famous in the royal city. After retiring in old age, he returned to Talon City. However, his old man has I haven't taken over business for a long time. The old man sitting there looked up at Jason and said calmly, "This is me." "Young man, what do you want from me?" "I want to ask him to build something for me." "Haha." The old man laughed. He smiled and said, "This blacksmith shop is no longer in business, so young man, you should come back." Jason smiled and said nothing, but took out 2 potion bottles from his body and placed them aside. On the shelf. One of the bottles of elixir is completely red, and there are dots of light in the elixir, just like small flames burning in it. It is really beautiful, and next to it is a bottle of blue. The elixir is extremely dark in color but quite ordinary in appearance. This is after seeing the 2 bottles of spiritual potion that Jason took out. A bright light suddenly appeared in the old man's eyes. He stood up suddenly, his expression changed for a long time, and he couldn't help but said in a deep voice, "No." "Do you know what the little brother is going to build?" After seeing the 2 bottles of spiritual potion that Jason took out, even though Tiger was well informed, he couldn't help but feel extremely excited. The red bottle of spiritual potion was called Lihua Potion, and the blue one was called Smelting Potion. Potions, these 2 potions are not high in the grade of spiritual potions. One is the 2nd order low grade, and the other is the 2nd order mid grade. It's a bracelet. I have prepared all the materials myself. I will use part of these 2 bottles of elixir during the making, and the rest will be given to the old gentleman as a reward for making it. How about it? Looking at the uncertain old man in front of him, Jason stood there quietly, his face full of confidence. He knew in his heart how attractive the 2 bottles of elixir he took out were to a blacksmith. When a blacksmith makes weapons, the required flame temperatures are different because of the different materials. If you make ordinary iron tools, ordinary flames are enough, but if you use some special materials to make them, you need some extremely high temperatures. The flame and the fire-living potion is a magical potion specially used by blacksmiths to increase the intensity and temperature of the flame. The smelting potion is an elixir used to smelt some metals and special materials when forging weapons. The metals and materials added to the smelting potion have better plasticity, better weapon teleportation, and higher hardness. However, although the fire-living potions and smelting potions are not of high grade, the configuration difficulty is not low. The potions that most elixir masters generally choose to learn, master, and configure can help the spiritual master improve his strength, heal injuries, or speed up his cultivation. Spiritual potions, where are those magical potions that can improve the blacksmith's forging ability? Therefore, fire-living potions and smelting potions are generally rarely found in spiritual potion shops. It is no wonder that Tiger is also a person who has seen the world in the royal city. So surprised. Okay. Tiger pondered for a long time and finally couldn't resist Jason's temptation. He gritted his teeth and agreed, and shouted to the young man who kept hammering, "Star, today's task is completed here, you go and close the door." "Yes, master." The young man agreed, and bang, the hammer in his hand hit the iron block hard. The entire iron block turned into a flat piece under the blow, and was then put into cold water for a while, to be tempered. "Little brother, I don't know what kind of bracelet you want to make." Tiger looked at Jason and said solemnly, "The bracelet that can be made with these 2 bottles of elixir as reward will definitely not be an ordinary bracelet." Jason took out several materials from his body and placed them in front of the old man one by one. The philosopher's stone was among them. "This is this?" Tiger's eyes were filled with excitement after seeing the materials Jason took out. After seeing one of the thumb-sized black crystals, he couldn't help but exclaimed, "This is cold star iron crystal?" Cold star iron crystal is one of the most precious ores on the continent. A sharp sword in the hands of a famous strong man on the continent is made of 50% cold star iron crystal. That strong man, after his death, the sword was put up for auction, and finally fetched a high price of 15 million, which shows how precious it is. The thumb-sized piece of cold star iron crystal in Tiger's hand was bought by Jason after traveling all over Talon City. This small piece of raw material cost Jason a full 100,000 spirit coins. Looking at the materials Jason placed over there, Tiger's eyes were full of surprise. Except for the largest piece of crystal with a flashing black light that he didn't recognize, the rest were all used to create spiritual weapons of top-quality materials. How did Tiger know that the combined value of all the materials placed there was less than 1/10,000th of that of the philosopher's stone?